welcome to Barbecue Wine and Dine. My name is Alana and today we are making some wonderful French onion soup. Lately here in Southern California we've been going through a bit of a rainy spell and nothing spells comfort more than some nice soup on a cold rainy day. We're going to start by slicing a couple of yellow onions. We've got salt, pepper, some bay leaves that we're going to put in there, about a 1/4 teaspoon of French thyme, a couple cloves of garlic, some beef broth and some red wine, all is going to go into the pot and we're going to get to slicing. So we're going to slice the onions up nice and thin and get them really good and caramelized to get that nice depth of flavor. If you hear a dog barking, that's my persnickety standard poodle named Winston. All right. Nice thin strips, nothing too thick, that way it can break down easier and get nice and caramelized. So I'm just going to finish chopping this up and I'll show you when we're heading over to the pot. So I've got a couple tablespoons of olive oil, about 3 tablespoons of butter into a large pot. You could also use a Dutch oven. And I've got 2 large yellow onions that are going to go in here. These are going to take a while to get nice and caramelized. You can try and rush it, but it won't yield the same product. So we're just going to throw these in there, let these go for a while. When they're closer to getting caramelized, I'm going to add in some garlic, some herbs, salt and pepper. Actually, I'll add a little salt now. That'll help speed up the caramelization, just a couple teaspoons. This is sea salt. Not all salt is the same. Some salt is saltier than others, so that's one thing to be aware of. But we're just gonna let this go for a while and we will come back when it's a little bit more cooked. Okay, so we're gonna add some garlic now that the onions are nice and caramelized. This is 2 hefty sized garlic cloves that I minced up. So we've got a couple cloves in there and I'm just going to stir it around. It's been going for about a minute or two. I just kind of want to soften it. I find if you add the garlic in the beginning, like most recipes call for, it just winds up burning. So I just literally add it the last couple minutes. And now we're going to add in about a 1/2 cup of some dry red wine. I'm adding a Spanish Rioja. You could use a Cabernet, you could use a Bordeaux. And I'm just going to put whatever my heart feels is a 1/2 cup. Feel free to measure for yourself. And a little bit more. So I'm just going to let this reduce down for a couple minutes and then we're going to come back with some more ingredients. So we've let the wine kind of reduce down and the alcohol has burned off. We've got those nice caramelized onions. Then I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of just some regular all-purpose flour. And that'll help thicken up the soup. Obviously we don't want it to be super thick, but no one likes a really watery soup. So we're gonna let this cook for a few minutes. That way you don't get that raw flour taste. And then we're gonna come back and hit it with a little bit more salt, some pepper, and some herbs. So it's going to be good. So now that the flour has cooked out, I'm gonna add about a 1/4-ish teaspoon of some French thyme that's dried. If you're using fresh thyme, probably about 1 sprig would be good, or about 1 teaspoon of fresh. And I like to kind of express the oil, so it's always good to give any dried herb a little rub. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And I'm going to toss in a couple of bay leaves. And I am adding 1 quart of beef stock. You could do homemade, store-bought. And we're just going to stir this all together. this up to a boil. Now this is good for about 4 to 6 people. If you're wanting to serve a crowd, you can easily double this recipe, but since there's just 2 of us, we like to make the smaller batch. And we're gonna let this simmer away. We're gonna bring it up to a boil here. So now we've brought it up to a boil, and I'm just gonna reduce it down to a simmer. It could be ready as soon as 10 or 15 minutes. I find it tastes better if you let it go a little bit longer. All the flavors get a better chance to know each other. In about 10-15 minutes, I'm going to do a little taste test and see if it needs some salt and pepper. So I already took a sip at the pot. This is my own little crock that I'm going to be having, but just to make sure it's seasoned well, give it a quick taste. Very good. It's got a nice silky bite to it from that butter we put in there. Very well seasoned with salt, pepper, and thyme. So now I have some very thinly sliced French bread. You can use whatever bread you like. I find that really thin French or like ciabatta works. And I'm going to put some shredded mozzarella on there. You can go in with Gruyere, Parmesan, Fontina, whatever trinity of cheeses you'd like. I really just prefer the classic of mozzarella, and I like a good amount of it. And I'm going to put this onto a cookie sheet and pop it into the broiler, and this is going to get wonderful and caramelized. Alright, so we've got our beautiful French onion soup here. I popped it underneath the broiler for about 5 minutes on high. You just got to be careful. It's nice and caramelized. You can see that bread and that cheese. So let's give it a try without burning my tongue off here. Got a little bit of everything there. We got some cheese, some bread, some onion, and some of that broth. That is excellent. The caramelized onions with the red wine, you can taste the thyme, the silkiness of the butter, and just the right amount of flour. So you get a little bit of thickness, but it's not too thick and it's not too watery either. And I enjoy it with a nice dry red wine to help wash it down. Go ahead and give it a try, and I'm going to put the recipe down in the description below.